There is a quiet miracle that greets us each morning. It does not knock loudly on the door, nor does it demand applause. It arrives softly, wrapped in the golden hush of dawn, carried on the wings of breath we did not earn, yet freely receive. And in that sacred moment between sleep and waking, we are given a choice: to rise burdened by yesterday, or to rise blessed by gratitude. To whisper, "Thank you, God," is to acknowledge that we are still here, still breathing, still becoming, still held by a grace that did not forget our name in the night. It is a simple phrase, but it carries the weight of mountains and the tenderness of mercy. Gratitude in the morning is not merely a habit, it is a declaration. It says, "I see the gift of this day. I honor the breath in my lungs. I choose hope over despair." When we begin our day with thanksgiving, we do more than speak words. We set the rhythm of our soul. We align ourselves with light even before the sun has fully risen. We remind our weary hearts that no matter what yesterday carried, today arrives with possibility stitched into its very fabric. So let us not rush past this holy beginning. Let us pause, lift our voices, whether in a whisper or a cry, and say, "Thank you, God." For in that moment, we awaken not just our bodies, but our spirits, ready to walk boldly into a day already blessed. There is a sacredness in beginnings, a quiet holiness that often goes unnoticed because it does not shout or demand to be seen. It arrives gently, like the first light stretching across the horizon, like the soft inhale that reminds you that life has chosen you once more. And in that tender space, before the world begins to pull at your sleeves and call your name, there is an opportunity, a divine invitation to begin again, not in fear, not in haste, but in gratitude. To wake and say, "Thank you, God," is to plant a seed in the soil of your spirit. It is a small act, barely louder than a whisper, yet it holds the power to transform the landscape of your entire day. For gratitude is not just a response to goodness, it is a creator of goodness. It does not wait for perfect conditions. It rises in the midst of uncertainty and declares that even here, even now, there is something worthy of thanks. Too often we open our eyes and immediately reach for worry. We count our problems before we count our blessings. We measure the weight of our responsibilities before we acknowledge the strength in our bones to carry them. But gratitude interrupts that pattern. It stands at the doorway of our thoughts and gently insists, "Look again." It asks us to notice what we have overlooked, the steady rhythm of our heartbeat, the quiet loyalty of breath, the unseen grace that carried us through the night. When you begin your day with thanksgiving, you are not denying the existence of hardship. You are choosing to see beyond it. You are declaring that your life is more than a list of troubles. It is a tapestry woven with moments of mercy, threads of resilience, and colors of unexpected joy. Gratitude does not erase pain, but it reframes it. It gives you the courage to say, "This is not all there is," and oh, how powerful that is. For a grateful beginning is like opening a window in a room that has grown stale with doubt. Fresh air rushes in, light spills across the floor. Suddenly, what once felt suffocating becomes breathable. What once felt dark reveals hidden corners of beauty. You realize that the day before you is not an enemy to be endured, but a gift to be unwrapped one moment at a time. There is a rhythm to gratitude, a steady pulse that aligns your spirit with something greater than yourself. When you say, "Thank you, God," you are acknowledging that you are not alone in this journey. You are recognizing a presence that walks with you, even when the road is uneven and the sky is heavy with clouds. That awareness brings a quiet strength, a deep-rooted peace that cannot easily be shaken by the chaos of the world. And so your perspective begins to shift. Where you once saw inconvenience, you begin to see opportunity. Where you once saw delay, you begin to see divine timing. Where you once saw lack, you begin to notice abundance hiding in plain sight. Gratitude sharpens your vision, allowing you to see blessings that were always there but went unrecognized. It is in the smile of a stranger, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the simple fact that your story is still being written. It is in the lessons disguised as challenges, the growth hidden within discomfort, the quiet victories that often go uncelebrated. Gratitude teaches you to honor these moments, to hold them gently, to say this too is a gift. And as you continue to practice this sacred beginning, something remarkable happens. Gratitude becomes less of an act and more of a way of being. It seeps into the fabric of your thoughts, your words, your actions. It changes the way you speak to others, the way you respond to difficulties, the way you carry yourself through the world. You begin to walk differently. Not with arrogance, but with assurance. Not with entitlement, but with appreciation. You understand that life does not owe you anything, and yet it continues to give. And in that understanding you find a deeper sense of joy, one that is not dependent on circumstances, but rooted in perspective. For joy, like gratitude, is a choice. It is not the absence of sorrow, but the presence of hope. It is the ability to find light even when shadows linger. And when you start your day with a grateful heart, you are choosing joy before anything else has a chance to influence you. You are setting the tone, writing the first line of a story that has yet to unfold. Now the world may still bring its trials. There will be moments that test your patience, situations that challenge your faith, days that feel heavier than you would like. But a grateful beginning equips you with something invaluable. It gives you a foundation. It reminds you, even in the midst of struggle, that there is still something to hold on to, something to be thankful for, something that cannot be taken away. It is the quiet assurance that you have been given another chance to love more deeply, another chance to forgive more freely, another chance to grow, to learn, to become. And that is no small thing. So when you rise in the morning before the noise of the world rushes in, take a moment to anchor yourself in gratitude. Let your first words be words of thanks. Let your first thought be one of appreciation. Let your heart recognize the miracle of this new beginning. Because each morning is a blank page, and gratitude is the ink that writes a story worth telling. It does not require perfection. It does not demand that everything be in its rightful place. It simply asks that you acknowledge what is good, what is present, what is possible. And in doing so, it opens the door for more goodness to enter, more presence to be felt, more possibilities to unfold. There is a quiet power in this practice, a strength that builds over time. It may not be loud or dramatic, but it is steady, it is faithful, it is transformative. And perhaps that is the beauty of it, that something so simple, 2 words, softly spoken, can carry such profound impact, that in a world often filled with noise and distraction, the act of saying, "Thank you, God," can bring you back to what truly matters. It reminds you that you are alive. It reminds you that you are held. It reminds you that this day, with all its uncertainties and possibilities, is a gift. And gifts, when recognized, have a way of multiplying. So begin there. Begin with gratitude. Let it be your foundation, your compass, your guiding light. Let it shape the way you see the world and the way you move within it. Let it remind you again and again that even in the ordinary there is something extraordinary waiting to be acknowledged. And as you carry that spirit of thanksgiving into your day, you may find that life begins to respond in kind. Doors may not always open the way you expect, but you will notice that you are no longer standing outside them in despair. Instead, you are walking forward with faith, trusting that wherever you are led, there is purpose in the journey. Because a grateful beginning does more than change your day, it changes you. It softens your heart without weakening your strength. It deepens your faith without closing your mind. It grounds you in humility while lifting you into hope. And in that transformation, you discover a truth that has always been there, waiting patiently for you to see it. That gratitude is not just something you give. It is something that gives back to you, again and again, in ways both seen and unseen. So rise each morning with thanks on your lips and hope in your heart. Step into the day not as one who is burdened, but as one who is blessed. And watch how the simple act of a grateful beginning begins to shape a life filled with meaning, purpose, and quiet, unshakable joy. Life, in its mysterious and uncompromising way, is a gift. It does not come with guarantees. It does not arrive wrapped neatly with instructions or promises of ease. It simply is a breath, a heartbeat, a pulse of possibility that pulses through your very bones, demanding to be noticed, demanding to be honored. And yet too often we take it for granted. We awaken and stumble through our days, expecting the sun to rise, expecting our hearts to beat, expecting the air to fill our lungs without thought or pause. But when we begin the day with a simple, reverent acknowledgement, "Thank you, God," we begin to see life not as something owed to us, but as something given freely, tenderly, as a gift of unimaginable value. To acknowledge life is to see the miracle in the mundane. It is to recognize that every heartbeat, every inhalation, every waking moment is a thread in a tapestry of grace that is far larger than we are. It is to understand that each morning is an opportunity to stand on the threshold of a day that is entirely ours to shape. A day that carries the potential to stretch our hearts, expand our minds, and deepen our souls. And so before we even rise from our beds, before the world has demanded anything of us, we can pause and bow our heads in quiet thanks. We can recognize that life, in its most elemental form, is already a triumph, already a blessing. It is easy to overlook this gift when life is loud, when responsibilities scream for attention, when our eyes are drawn to what is missing rather than what is present. We forget that to breathe is an act of grace. We forget that the rhythm of our heart, the movement of our limbs, the ability to think, to love, to feel, to hope, all these are not entitlements but offerings. They are the divine whisper that says, "You are here and your presence matters." Acknowledging life is an act of awareness, and awareness is a form of reverence. When we say, "Thank you, God," in the quiet of the morning, we do more than utter words. We awaken to the reality that existence itself is a gift of profound magnitude. Every cell in our body, every beat of our heart, every flicker of consciousness is a reminder that we have been granted more than mere survival. We have been granted a chance to dream, to strive, to love, to forgive, to grow. And in that acknowledgement, we recognize the sacredness of being, the sanctity of each breath. Life is neither perfect nor predictable. It is messy, complicated, and often unfair, but it is life nonetheless, and it is ours. There is something humbling, something grounding about recognizing this. When we face the day with gratitude for life itself, we begin to see beyond our complaints, beyond our anxieties, beyond our frustrations. We begin to see that even in hardship, even in sorrow, even in the moments when we feel least in control, the very fact that we are here, that we are able to witness, to experience, to engage, is a miracle in itself. Consider the dawn, the way it arrives, whether we are ready or not. Consider the heart, how it continues its faithful rhythm even when our spirits falter. Consider the breath, how it fills our lungs without effort, carrying with it life itself. There is majesty in these small, unremarkable truths, and yet they are miracles that we so often overlook. To acknowledge them is to open a door to gratitude, to open a window to joy, to open a path to peace. Acknowledging the gift of life is not a passive act. It requires attentiveness, it requires humility, it requires courage. It requires us to look beyond the noise of the world, beyond the distractions that pull us from presence, and to see the wonder that exists in simply being. And when we cultivate that perspective, we begin to live differently. We begin to move through our days with intention, with respect, with tenderness toward ourselves and toward others. We begin to recognize the interconnectedness of all things, the way our lives touch and are touched by those around us, the way our existence is entwined with the world, the way each moment holds the potential for grace. When we begin the day acknowledging life as a gift, we also begin to acknowledge our own resilience. We recognize that we have survived nights of fear, days of struggle, moments of despair, and yet here we are, still standing, still breathing, still capable of hope. That acknowledgement carries power. It is a quiet strength, a deep knowing that we are not here by accident, that our presence has meaning, that our journey matters. To say thank you, God, is to affirm that meaning, to honor the journey, to celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. Life in its fullness is not measured by the absence of pain or the accumulation of success. It is measured by our ability to recognize and embrace the gift of each moment. And it is in those moments, simple and fleeting though they may be, that we find the essence of gratitude. The warmth of sunlight on our skin, the laughter of a loved one, the stillness of a quiet morning, the sound of birdsong, the touch of a hand, all of these are fragments of the gift we have been given. To see them, to savor them, to acknowledge them is to honor life itself. There is also a humility that comes with acknowledging life as a gift. It reminds us that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. Our lives are not solitary. They are threads in a vast tapestry woven by the hands of grace. When we recognize the gift of life, we begin to recognize our responsibility to honor it, not only in our own hearts, but in the way we treat others, in the way we move through the world, in the way we leave our mark. Gratitude for life leads to compassion, leads to generosity, leads to a deeper sense of purpose. Acknowledging life is also an act of hope. It is a declaration that despite the challenges, despite the pain, despite the uncertainty, we are here, and that is enough to begin. It is a recognition that each day carries with it the possibility for renewal, for growth, for transformation. When we begin with thanks for life, we begin with the belief that something good, something sacred, something worthy of honor can emerge from even the most ordinary day. And so, in the quiet moments of morning, let us pause, let us breathe deeply and feel the pulse of life within us. Let us stretch our hands toward the sky, even if silently, and whisper, "Thank you, God." Let us acknowledge the miracle of our existence, the beauty of being alive, the opportunity to witness, to create, to love, to learn. Let us allow that acknowledgement to shape the way we move through the day, to color our thoughts, to guide our actions, to open our hearts. For life in its essence is a gift that demands recognition. It is not simply to be endured, not merely to be survived. It is to be cherished, to be honored, to be embraced with all the awareness we can muster. And when we start our day by acknowledging that gift, we begin to live with a depth and richness that cannot be measured by worldly standards. We begin to live in rhythm with the universe, in harmony with the flow of creation, in resonance with the pulse of grace that sustains us. We begin to see the extraordinary in the ordinary, the sacred in the simple, the beauty in the everyday. And in that seeing, in that honoring, in that acknowledgement, we become more fully alive. To say thank you, God, is to bow to life itself. It is to recognize that each heartbeat, each breath, each dawn, each chance to rise is a gift. It is a reminder that we are present, that we are seen, that we are held, and that in the vast, unending mystery of existence, our lives matter. And in that acknowledgement we are transformed. So let us rise with hearts open wide. Let us greet the morning with reverence. Let us honor the gift of life in all its complexity, all its challenges, all its beauty. Let us step into the day not merely as survivors of the night, but as witnesses to the miracle of our own existence. Let us live fully, love deeply, hope boldly, and give thanks unceasingly. For life is a gift, and acknowledging that gift is the first step toward a day and a life truly blessed. The morning is a threshold, a sacred moment suspended between the hush of night and the stirrings of the day. It is a space that belongs neither to the past nor entirely to the future. It is a space that belongs to you, to the spirit within you, to the quiet witness that waits for your attention before the world demands anything of you. And it is in this fragile, golden moment that the tone of the day is set. What you say, what you feel, what you choose to carry forward will ripple through the hours that follow. To begin with a simple prayer, to whisper, "Thank you, God," is to place your feet firmly upon the foundation of intention, to shape your day with the tender power of gratitude. For too often we awaken and allow the world to dictate our moods, our energy, our outlook. We let the first insult, the first inconvenience, the first echo of doubt define the rhythm of our hearts. We stumble into our obligations, reacting rather than creating, responding rather than leading, swept along by currents we did not choose. But when we start the day with conscious acknowledgement, with a heart steeped in thankfulness, we reclaim the steering wheel of our own spirits. We declare, before anything else has a chance to speak, that we will meet the world not with complaint but with purpose, not with fear but with hope, not with despair but with faith. To set the tone for the day is to recognize that the first moments matter. They are the paint on the canvas before the brush begins its work. They are the first notes of a melody before the orchestra swells. They are the root from which all action, all thought, all energy grows. If the morning is sown with patience, the day may bear fruits of understanding. If the morning is bathed in gratitude, the day may bloom with joy. If the morning is touched by love, the day may resonate with connection. And so the practice of beginning with prayer is not mere ritual. It is an act of creation, a shaping of reality through the deliberate choice of the heart. When you whisper, "Thank you, God," you are acknowledging that the day belongs not only to the tasks that await, but to the spirit that carries you through them. You are choosing to lead with intention rather than react with habit. You are declaring that your inner life has primacy, that the energy you bring into each encounter will shape not only your experience, but the experience of all who cross your path. This is the power of a mindful morning. It transforms the ordinary into the sacred, the routine into the remarkable, the expected into the extraordinary. And there is a rhythm in this intentionality, a heartbeat that resonates with the pulse of life itself. When you begin with gratitude, you begin in harmony with the universe. Your mind clears of unnecessary clutter. Your heart finds its bearings. Your spirit opens to possibilities that may have been obscured by fear, by distraction, by the weight of yesterday. The tone you set is not superficial. It does not depend on circumstance. It is rooted in a truth that is larger than any fleeting challenge. You are alive, you are capable, you are loved, and you are guided. Consider how the tone of your own life has shifted in moments when you began intentionally, when you breathed, when you paused, when you spoke words of acknowledgement before the demands of the day pulled you into chaos. Perhaps you have noticed how a calm, centered beginning can make even the busiest, most complicated day feel manageable. Perhaps you have felt how patience flows more readily when you do not begin in haste. Perhaps you have experienced the resilience that comes when your first words of the day are words of thanks rather than complaint. These are not coincidences. They are evidence that the tone you set in the morning carries power beyond the confines of time, beyond the limitations of circumstance. Setting the tone is also an act of self-respect. It is a declaration that your spirit matters, that your inner state is worthy of attention, that you do not exist merely to react to the world's pressures, but to participate consciously in the creation of your life. When you begin with prayer, when you cultivate awareness in the first moments of dawn, you honor the sacred in yourself and in the day itself. You honor the gift of consciousness, the ability to choose your path, the responsibility to direct your energy with care. And in honoring these things, you prepare not just for survival, but for thriving. The tone of the day influences perception, and perception shapes reality. When the morning is approached with gratitude, patience, and reverence, the world reveals itself differently. Obstacles are softened, challenges become teachers, inconveniences are reframed as opportunities. There is a subtle alchemy at work. The energy you cultivate first thing in the morning molds the texture of your experience. You may still encounter difficulty, yet you meet it not as a victim, but as a participant, as one who carries the assurance of divine support, as one whose spirit is prepared to bend without breaking, to learn without despair, to love without reservation. This is why morning prayer, why beginning with "Thank you, God," matters so profoundly. It is not about words alone. It is about setting a frequency, tuning your spirit to the wavelength of grace, aligning your inner life with the flow of creation. It is a practice that, repeated day after day, shapes the very essence of who you are and how you walk through the world. It is an act of empowerment, a quiet declaration that you will not be tossed like driftwood by circumstance, that you will meet each hour with clarity, with courage, with compassion. And let us remember, this intentionality is not limited to the individual. When one heart begins in gratitude, it ripples outward. When one soul sets a calm, centered tone, it influences the space around it. Families, communities, workplaces, even fleeting encounters, these are touched by the energy we carry. There is a subtle, almost magical truth. When you rise with purpose and thankfulness, you do more than shape your own day. You shape the days of those you touch. You plant seeds of peace, of hope, of resilience in ways both visible and unseen. To neglect the morning is to surrender the day before it begins. To rise without acknowledgement, without pause, without reverence, is to give the first moments to worry, to distraction, to negativity. It is to allow circumstance to dictate the rhythm of your spirit, rather than to take your place as an active participant in the creation of your own life. But to set the tone intentionally, to rise with prayer, to greet the day with gratitude, is to reclaim agency. It is to assert, quietly but firmly, that you will meet the world on your own terms, not in resistance, but in alignment with the highest parts of yourself. And there is freedom in this, a freedom that is often overlooked. There is freedom in choosing the inner state from which you operate. There is freedom in shaping the emotional and spiritual climate of your day. There is freedom in refusing to be swept along by the unthinking currents of habit and reaction. Freedom, after all, begins not in circumstance, but in consciousness. And consciousness begins each morning with the awareness that you have a choice. So rise, breathe deeply. Feel the life coursing through your body. Acknowledge the miracle of being awake, being present, being capable of shaping the hours that lie ahead. Whisper the words that carry weight beyond their simplicity. Thank you, God. Let them resonate in your chest, in your mind, in your spirit. Let them be the drumbeat that sets the rhythm for the day, the lens that colors your perception, the light that illuminates your path. And as you step into the hours, carry that tone with you. Let gratitude temper your words. Let intention guide your actions. Let patience steady your responses. Let hope lift your gaze. And know, even in the midst of chaos, that the energy you sow in the first moments of morning will bloom throughout the day, touching others in ways you may never see, influencing outcomes you may never fully understand, and shaping a life that is rooted in purpose, resilience, and grace. Setting the tone for the day is not a small thing. It is not trivial. It is the cornerstone upon which the entire structure of your experience is built. It is the soil in which your choices, your thoughts, your dreams will take root. And when it is nourished by gratitude, by prayer, by reverence, it becomes fertile ground for a life of meaning, of joy, of connection, of unwavering courage. So do not rush past it. Do not dismiss it as inconsequential. Stand in the morning light, however dim or fleeting it may be. Feel the pulse of life, the gift of existence, the power of intention. Speak your thanks and let that act shape the world that follows. For in the quiet ceremony of a grateful morning, the tone of the day is set, not by circumstance, not by others, not by fortune, but by the strength and the wisdom of your own awakened heart. There is a paradox in life that the soul comes to understand only after it has been tested, only after it has been stretched, twisted, and pressed against the hard edges of circumstance. The paradox is this: true strength is not always found in resistance, not always found in struggle, not always found in the insistence of the will against the world. True strength often whispers softly, waits patiently, and finds its voice in surrender. It is the strength that bends without breaking, that releases without falling, that trusts without abandoning discernment. And it is in the simple act of saying, "Thank you, God," before the day has even begun, that we practice this kind of strength, that we honor the power of surrender as a force that is mighty, even when it appears gentle. Surrender is not weakness. It is not capitulation. It is not the lowering of your head in defeat. It is the recognition that there are forces larger than you, currents that cannot be commanded, winds that cannot be stopped, and yet within that recognition there exists a kind of sovereignty, a power of choice, a dignity that cannot be taken away. To surrender is to place trust where it belongs, to lay down the burden of impossible control, to allow life in all its mystery to flow through you while you remain steadfast, alert, and fully present. It is to understand that sometimes the greatest act of courage is not to push against the storm, but to let it pass over you with faith that the sun still waits beyond the clouds. When we begin our day with a morning prayer, when we lift our voices in gratitude before the world has had a chance to demand, we practice surrender in its most sacred form. We say, in essence, "I cannot do this alone, yet I am not alone." I release my need to control all that comes, and I place my trust in the one who carries me. And in that moment, the soul breathes more freely, the heart beats with a steadier rhythm, and the spirit awakens to a power that is quiet but unwavering. There is strength in recognizing our limits. There is power in understanding that control is often an illusion, and that the human heart, magnificent though it is, cannot hold the weight of the entire universe on its own. And so surrender becomes not an act of resignation, but an act of wisdom. It is the courage to step back, the grace to step aside, the humility to acknowledge that there are mysteries beyond our comprehension. And yet, despite that, we are sustained. Surrender allows us to meet life on its own terms while keeping the integrity of our own soul intact. When you greet the morning with thanks, you are not simply acknowledging the gift of existence. You are embracing the profound truth that your strength is amplified by your willingness to yield, by your readiness to trust, by your capacity to let go. To say thank you, God, is to release the tension that comes from grasping too tightly at outcomes, to soften the rigid lines of fear and expectation, and to open yourself to a flow of grace that moves in ways beyond your understanding. It is a daily exercise in the alchemy of surrender, transforming resistance into resilience, fear into courage, doubt into faith. Consider how surrender shapes the soul. It teaches patience, the kind that is deep and unshakable, the kind that does not demand immediate gratification or instant answers. It cultivates humility, reminding us that while we are powerful, we are not omnipotent. It fosters gratitude, showing us that when we yield to divine timing, blessings arrive not by force but by flow. And it nurtures peace, the peace that comes when we lay down the burden of control and open ourselves to the vast, mysterious intelligence that guides the rhythm of life. Surrender also strengthens empathy. When we release the illusion that everything is in our hands, we recognize the fragility and resilience in others. We see that every person carries their own burdens, navigates their own storms, and yet survives, persists, and sometimes even flourishes. To surrender is to acknowledge shared humanity, to honor the struggles of others while tending to our own hearts, and to find connection in the simple truth that none of us walks alone. It is not always easy. Surrender is often misunderstood, ridiculed, or feared. We are taught from a young age that strength is shown in holding on, in pushing forward, in never giving in. But life has a way of revealing the limits of that kind of force. When we resist too fiercely, we break. When we cling too tightly, we suffer. When we insist too strenuously, we exhaust ourselves. True strength, the kind that carries the weight of days and the storms of experience, often emerges not from grip but from release. It comes when we trust that there is a greater hand guiding the unfolding of our lives, a wisdom that we cannot always see but can choose to honor. The act of morning prayer, of starting the day with gratitude, is a practice of this surrender. It is a deliberate pause, a conscious choice to acknowledge that we are not alone, that there is a presence beyond ourselves that sustains us, that the day will unfold according to a plan we may not fully understand but can participate in with faith and integrity. It is in this acknowledgement that true strength grows, not the kind that dominates but the kind that endures, not the kind that controls, but the kind that trusts. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that whispers and yet moves mountains in its quiet resolve. Surrender is also a teacher of discernment. It does not mean we accept every hardship without thought. It does not demand passivity in the face of injustice. It asks us to know when to act and when to release, when to fight and when to yield, when to speak and when to listen. And in that knowing, we find a clarity that comes from aligning ourselves with a higher intelligence, a force that is patient, omnipresent, and profoundly wise. There is courage in this clarity, for it requires faith that our efforts, when guided rightly, will meet the world with precision and purpose, while our surrender shields us from the needless suffering of futile struggle. There is also a transformative quality in surrender. When we release our attachment to outcomes, when we bow in humility to the flow of life, we open ourselves to lessons we might otherwise miss. We begin to see obstacles as opportunities, challenges as invitations to grow, pain as a teacher rather than a punishment. The act of letting go, paradoxically, strengthens our resolve, deepens our character, and widens our capacity for love, compassion, and joy. And oh, how life responds to this strength. When we surrender, when we trust, when we greet each morning with a heart full of thanks, doors open in ways we cannot predict. The burdens we carry often lighten, solutions emerge from unexpected places. Hearts that seemed closed soften, paths that seemed blocked reveal hidden passages. And through it all, we learn the quiet, unshakable truth that surrender is not weakness, it is the mightiest form of power. Strength in surrender is also about presence. When we stop fighting what cannot be changed, when we cease wrestling with the uncontrollable, we step fully into the present moment. We are no longer haunted by the ghosts of yesterday or anxious about the shadows of tomorrow. We exist fully in the now, breathing deeply, feeling keenly, acting wisely, loving fully. This presence is a strength that radiates outward, touching others, shaping experiences, and bringing harmony to a world too often fractured by fear and insistence. To cultivate this strength is to cultivate life itself. It is to learn the art of balance, to walk the line between effort and ease, action and patience, courage and humility. It is to trust that the universe or God or the force of creation carries you even when you cannot see the path. It is to live each day with awareness that surrender is not a concession but a commitment to faith, to integrity, to the resilience of the human spirit. And so each morning when we whisper, "Thank you, God," we step into this truth. We acknowledge that we are not alone in the shaping of our lives. We recognize that control is not ours to hoard entirely, but trust is ours to cultivate endlessly. We open ourselves to guidance, to wisdom, to grace. We allow life to flow through us, carrying lessons, blessings, challenges, and gifts in equal measure. And in this act of surrender, we find the fortitude to face the day with courage, to meet obstacles with clarity, and to engage the world with love, patience, and unshakable faith. Strength in surrender is the quiet revolution of the spirit. It does not clamor for recognition. It does not demand validation. It simply exists, flowing through the heart, moving the mind, grounding the soul, and shaping life in ways that cannot always be measured but are profoundly felt. It is the rhythm that sustains us, the breath that steadies us, the light that guides us when all else is shadowed. And so rise each morning with this understanding. Speak your gratitude, offer your trust, release your need to control, and embrace the quiet, enduring strength that comes from surrender. Walk through the hours not as one defeated by circumstance, but as one empowered by faith, anchored in trust, and buoyed by the infinite grace that accompanies the heart willing to yield. For in surrender the soul discovers a power greater than any struggle, a courage deeper than any fear, and a peace that surpasses understanding, a strength that transforms not only the day but the life itself. Life has a way of testing the human heart. It presents obstacles not as punishments but as teachers cloaked in difficulty. It offers hardships not to crush us but to awaken us, to push us toward growth, to reveal depths of strength we did not know we possessed. And yet all too often we meet challenge with complaint, resistance, or fear. We rail against the tide, we curse the storm, we let our hearts harden against the very lessons that life has tenderly placed before us. But there is another way, a higher, more profound way to face difficulty, and that way begins with gratitude. Gratitude transforms the lens through which we see the world. It is a lens that does not deny pain, that does not erase struggle, that does not pretend that life is easy. Rather, it is a lens that illuminates the hidden gifts in hardship, that reveals the lessons within suffering, that opens the soul to the quiet whisper of wisdom that often arrives dressed in discomfort. When we start our day with a simple, heartfelt "Thank you, God," we are laying the foundation for this transformation. We are declaring that no matter what challenges lie ahead, our hearts will remain anchored in appreciation, our spirits will remain open, and our minds will remain receptive to the teaching of the moment. Challenges are inevitable. They arrive with the certainty of sunrise, with the regularity of breath. They test our patience, our resilience, our courage, our faith. They stretch us beyond our comfort, demand of us more than we thought we had, and strip away illusions of control. But gratitude, when cultivated, becomes the lens through which these challenges can be transformed from burdens into opportunities. It does not make hardship disappear, but it shifts the weight of it, allowing us to carry it with dignity, with hope, with strength. It reminds us that even in the darkest hours, there is a thread of light, a spark of purpose, a reason to lift our gaze and move forward. Consider the moments when life feels unbearable. Perhaps it is the loss of someone beloved, the betrayal of trust, the collapse of plans carefully laid, the sudden illness, the invisible chains of worry that bind your heart at night. In these moments, gratitude seems almost impossible. Yet it is precisely in these moments that gratitude wields its greatest power. To say "Thank you, God," when tears blur the eyes, when the chest feels too heavy to carry, when the world seems indifferent, is to proclaim that even in suffering there is grace. It is to claim the strength to see beyond the immediate, to acknowledge that growth is often disguised as pain, and that the spirit is resilient enough to endure, to adapt, and to thrive. Gratitude shifts perception. It teaches the heart to see the invisible scaffolding of life, the unseen supports that hold us when we feel most precarious. It illuminates the hands that reach for us, the lessons that whisper to us, the hidden victories that come quietly, unheralded, yet profoundly transformative. When we choose to give thanks in the face of difficulty, we refuse to be defined solely by what oppresses us. We assert our ability to recognize beauty in the midst of sorrow, to find hope within despair, to feel joy even when circumstances seem bleak. And there is power in this. Power not over life, not over circumstance, but power over our own hearts. Power that allows us to rise each day with dignity, to meet challenges with clarity, to move through adversity without losing the essence of who we are. Gratitude becomes a shield against bitterness, a light against despair, a guide through confusion. It reminds us that while we cannot always change what happens to us, we can choose how we respond, and in that choice lies the transformative magic of the human spirit. Gratitude also cultivates resilience. It teaches the heart to bend without breaking, to flow without losing form, to persevere without surrendering hope. When we thank God for life itself, for breath itself, for the opportunity to face yet another day, we are acknowledging that within us exists the capacity to endure, to adapt, to rise above. Challenges become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks, opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to defeat. Each difficulty met with gratitude becomes a lesson in strength, patience, and perspective. This is not to romanticize suffering. Life is often harsh, cruel, and unpredictable. There will be days when the heart aches so deeply that words of thanks feel hollow. There will be nights when sleep eludes, when doubt creeps in like a shadow, when the spirit feels fragile. Yet even in these moments, gratitude offers a lifeline. It whispers that no pain is wasted, that every struggle carries within it the seeds of wisdom, that every challenge holds the potential to awaken something in us we did not know existed. Gratitude does not erase hardship, but it transforms the way we inhabit it, the way we move through it, the way we allow it to shape us. When we approach challenges with a grateful heart, we also cultivate clarity. Gratitude allows us to see what truly matters, to distinguish between the temporary and the eternal, to recognize the difference between what we can control and what we cannot. It brings perspective to the chaos, order to the confusion, light to the darkness. We begin to understand that setbacks are not the end of the story, that failure is not permanent, that each moment, no matter how difficult, contains a thread of hope waiting to be followed. Moreover, gratitude transforms relationships during times of challenge. When we carry a heart of thanks, even in adversity, we engage with others from a place of compassion rather than frustration, of understanding rather than judgment. We see their struggles mirrored in our own, and empathy flows where resentment might otherwise take root. We become conduits of support, of kindness, of healing, simply because gratitude has taught us to recognize the interconnectedness of all hearts, the shared vulnerability and resilience of the human experience. And let us not underestimate the subtle power of this transformation. When challenges are met with a grateful heart, the energy we carry into the day changes everything. Conversations shift, opportunities appear, obstacles soften, and solutions emerge in ways we could not have foreseen. Gratitude opens doors where resistance might have slammed them shut. It illuminates paths hidden in shadow. It inspires creativity, patience, and courage. It allows us to navigate the turbulent waters of life with skill and grace, rather than flounder in fear and frustration. There is also a spiritual dimension to this transformation. Gratitude aligns the soul with a higher purpose, a divine rhythm, a sacred flow. By acknowledging the gifts within hardship, we participate in the unfolding of life's greater design. We recognize that we are not mere victims of circumstance, but active participants in a story that is larger than ourselves. Challenges, then, are not punishments, but invitations to deepen our faith, to expand our courage, to elevate our understanding. They are teachers, not tormentors, guides rather than adversaries. And as we cultivate this perspective, as we practice beginning each day with thanks, we develop a profound resilience that is more than physical or mental. It is the resilience of the spirit, the kind that cannot be shaken by misfortune, the kind that shines in adversity, the kind that transforms pain into power, loss into wisdom, struggle into triumph. This is the alchemy of gratitude. This is the miracle of acknowledging God's presence even when the world seems unjust, chaotic, or overwhelming. Gratitude transforms not only the challenges themselves, but the very way we experience life. It teaches us that nothing is wasted, that nothing is meaningless, that even in difficulty there is purpose. It allows us to meet each moment with courage, clarity, and composure. It empowers us to move through life with a sense of agency, knowing that while we cannot always change the circumstances, we can change the way we inhabit them. It turns obstacles into opportunities, suffering into insight, despair into hope. To live with this awareness is to embrace a higher form of freedom, freedom from resentment, freedom from bitterness, freedom from the tyranny of circumstance. When gratitude becomes the lens through which we view the world, we no longer fight the currents of life in futile struggle. Instead, we learn to swim with the tide, to navigate storms with wisdom, to move forward with courage. Life's challenges remain, but their power over us diminishes, and in their place rises a strength that is steady, profound, and enduring. So rise each morning and place gratitude at the center of your heart. Whisper, "Thank you, God," even before the first trial of the day appears. Let this act of recognition shape your perception, guide your actions, and fortify your spirit. Let gratitude be the lens through which you see the storms, the fire through which you temper your resolve, the light by which you navigate the shadows. And as you do, you will discover that life, no matter how difficult, can be transformed into a teacher, a guide, a source of strength, and a reminder that the human spirit, when anchored in gratitude, is indomitable, resilient, and radiant. Challenges, then, are no longer enemies. They become invitations. They become mirrors reflecting the depth of our courage, the breadth of our compassion, and the vastness of our capacity for joy. And when we greet them with a grateful heart, we are not merely surviving, we are rising. We are growing. We are becoming the fullest expression of the strength, wisdom, and grace that reside within us. Gratitude transforms everything. It transforms the mundane into the sacred, the ordinary into the extraordinary, the heavy into the bearable. It is the quiet power that turns fear into faith, doubt into clarity, and struggle into triumph. And so let us begin each day with thanks. Let us face every challenge with hearts open and spirits willing. Let us embrace the alchemy of gratitude, allowing it to turn every trial into a lesson, every difficulty into a gift, and every moment, no matter how trying, into an opportunity to rise, to shine, and to become more fully alive. There is a profound beauty in consistency, a quiet power in routine, a sacred rhythm that begins when the soul chooses to meet the dawn with intention. Creating a habit of daily connection is more than mere discipline. It is a declaration of devotion, a commitment to the inner life, a conscious choice to honor the spirit before the demands of the world call you away. Each morning, as the sky softens from darkness to gold, as the first birds call across the horizon, as the air holds the promise of a new beginning, there is an invitation, a chance to pause, to breathe, to speak, and to acknowledge the divine presence that sustains you. In saying, "Thank you, God," day after day, you are weaving a thread of connection that will run through the tapestry of your life, linking heart to heart, spirit to spirit, and self to the source of all that is. The power of a daily habit lies not in the action itself, but in the fidelity of its practice. It is not the length of the prayer or the eloquence of the words that matters most, but the consistency with which the heart returns to this sacred moment. Like the tide that rises and falls with certainty, like the sun that breaks the horizon each morning, the act of connecting daily cultivates a rhythm within the soul. It tells the spirit, you are seen, you are acknowledged, you are loved. Over time, this rhythm becomes a current running beneath the surface of the day, steadying the heart, sharpening the mind, and opening the spirit to the gentle guidance that comes only to those who listen, to those who return faithfully, to those who make the space for sacred dialogue with the divine. Daily connection is the soil in which gratitude grows. Each time you pause to whisper, "Thank you, God," you are tending to the garden of your spirit. You are planting seeds of awareness, of humility, of reverence, of hope. And as these seeds take root, they grow into strength, resilience, and clarity. The practice becomes a shield against the chaos of the world, a compass that guides the heart through turbulence, a lamp that illuminates the path when shadows gather. Habits are powerful because they shape the architecture of the soul, and when that architecture is built upon connection, it supports not just survival but flourishing. Connection in this sense is not passive. It is not a routine performed out of obligation. It is a meeting of hearts, a conversation between the finite and the infinite, a dialogue in which the human spirit aligns itself with the pulse of the divine. It is a recognition that we are not alone, that life does not unfold in isolation, that there is a presence that carries us even when we cannot carry ourselves. And in returning to this presence daily, in creating this sacred habit, we cultivate a trust so deep that no challenge can uproot it, no trial can diminish it, no shadow can obscure it. The habit of daily connection transforms perception. When the spirit is anchored in acknowledgement and gratitude each morning, the world itself begins to appear differently. Obstacles do not seem insurmountable. Difficulties are reframed as lessons. Setbacks are softened by the understanding that every day carries hidden gifts. Life becomes less a series of burdens and more a series of opportunities, each infused with meaning, each calling forth the courage, patience, and wisdom within. By committing to this daily habit, we train our hearts to notice the subtle, the quiet, the miraculous, the gentle movements of grace that often go unseen when the soul is distracted or hurried. Moreover, creating a habit of daily connection nurtures a continuity of spiritual growth. The soul, like the body, thrives on regular nourishment. Just as food fuels the flesh and sleep restores the body, daily prayer and connection feed the spirit. Each morning, as the words of thanks rise like smoke into the stillness, the heart learns patience, the mind learns focus, the spirit learns discernment. This regularity strengthens the channels of faith and awareness, making it easier to carry the lessons of the sacred into the actions of the day, the decisions of the mind, and the interactions with others. Connection is not only personal, it is relational. The practice of daily acknowledgement shapes the way we meet others, how we hear them, how we respond, how we love. When the spirit is grounded in communion with the divine, empathy flows more readily. Compassion becomes natural. The ability to forgive, to see beyond the surface, to recognize the shared burdens of humanity deepens. Daily connection is the anchor that keeps the heart soft and open, even when the world demands hardness, toughness, or indifference. It reminds us that we are part of a greater whole, that our actions ripple outward, that our hearts are linked to countless others in the ongoing dance of life. The habit of connection also fosters resilience. Life, unpredictable and relentless, will test patience, courage, and faith. But when we meet each day with acknowledgement of God, we are reminded that we do not face these tests alone. The connection becomes a source of strength, a reservoir from which we draw when trials press heavily upon us. It reassures us that our struggles are not signs of weakness, but opportunities to practice faith, to cultivate grace, and to deepen the reservoir of spiritual endurance that sustains us across all seasons. Furthermore, this practice teaches the soul the art of presence. By returning daily to prayer, to acknowledgement, to gratitude, we anchor ourselves in the moment, resisting the pull of past regrets and future anxieties. The habit trains us to notice the breath, to feel the heartbeat, to recognize the simple miracle of being alive. Presence, cultivated in this way, becomes a guiding light throughout the day, shaping choices, guiding interactions, and allowing us to respond to life rather than react impulsively. In this presence we find peace, clarity, and a strength that flows from alignment with the divine rhythm. Consistency and connection also builds trust. Trust in life, trust in ourselves, trust in the unseen, the unheard, the often mysterious workings of grace. Each morning, each repetition, each whispered "Thank you, God," is a thread weaving a tapestry of confidence that no matter what comes, we are supported, we are guided, we are enough. The habit becomes a fortress of faith, a safe place within the heart, a grounding that carries us through uncertainty, adversity, and the unpredictable tides of human experience. And there is a quiet joy in this, the joy that rises not from circumstance, not from achievement, not from applause or recognition, but from the knowledge that you have chosen to honor your own soul. The joy that comes from recognizing that life is not merely a sequence of obligations, but a sacred opportunity for connection, communion, and co-creation with the divine. The joy that arises when you meet each day consciously, fully, and gratefully, and realize that even the smallest act of acknowledgement has the power to transform the very fabric of your existence. Creating a habit of daily connection is in essence an act of love. Love for the self, love for life, love for the unseen presence that walks with us. It is a refusal to let the busyness of the world, the distractions of the mind, the urgencies of circumstance pull us from what is eternal and sustaining. It is a recognition that while the day will demand much, our inner life deserves precedence, that our spirit deserves nourishment, that our connection with God, with the sacred, with the infinite, is the source from which all courage, all compassion, all clarity flows. And as this habit deepens, its effects extend far beyond the early morning. It informs choices, colors interactions, tempers reactions, strengthens resolve, and cultivates wisdom. It creates a lens through which life is seen more fully, more deeply, more tenderly. Challenges are met with grace. Joys are amplified with awareness. Relationships are enriched with empathy. Moments, both ordinary and extraordinary, are experienced with heightened presence and understanding. The habit of connection transforms the way life itself is lived, shaping the human experience into a more harmonious, more meaningful, more radiant journey. So rise each morning, breathe, anchor yourself, speak the words of thanks, let them flow from the heart, simple, true, unwavering. Return faithfully, day after day, even when distractions call, even when weariness tempts, even when doubt whispers that it is too small, too insignificant, too late. For in these moments, you are building more than a habit. You are building a foundation for a life of integrity, purpose, and grace. You are weaving a tapestry of resilience, love, and faith that will carry you through storms, illuminate your path, and sustain your spirit across all the days that follow. The habit of daily connection is the heartbeat of a life well lived. It reminds us that we are not alone, that we are held, that we are capable of love, gratitude, and courage beyond measure. It teaches us to notice the sacred in the ordinary, to embrace the divine in every breath, to meet life with a spirit that is steadfast, aware, and awake. And in this practice, repeated, faithful, and deliberate, we discover the quiet, unshakable truth that when the soul chooses connection, every day becomes a blessing, every challenge becomes a teacher, every moment becomes a gift, and the life itself becomes a masterpiece of grace.